This is a special podcast presentation from 700WLW.com. This is Darryl Park's On Demand.
This is one of those weekends I wait for. We spring forward. Oh, man. The winter has been so long. Spring is almost here. Good morning. 6 minutes after 9. I'm Darryl Parks here on the big one. And this weekend is a rather sad weekend for media here in Porkopolis. And if you would indulge me just a little bit this morning, I would appreciate it. Media is changing a lot. And if you look at media in general, and media that I will refer to as traditional media, that being newspapers, magazines, radio, television, it's all changing. And if you look at mass communication, I'll give you a little history lesson here. It was in the late 1400s. It's like 1480 that printing was invented, which allowed for mass communication. So it was books were printed, the beginnings of just mass communicating between people and also the keeping of history. And that lasted all the way until the 1920s. In the 1920s, radio came of age. Here in the Cincinnati area, radio became a big industry with the big one, of course, Powell Crosley making radios. And he started making radios, and then I could make radios, but there's nothing to listen to, so I'll put the big one on the air, and that's how that all came about. The radios came first. And then not too long after that, television came along, and television and radio both operate under the same business model. We provide programming, we sell commercials in the programming, and the programming is free. And then in the early by the way, radio and television provided instantaneous mass communication. Then in the 1990s, the internet was invented. And here we are today in 2013, and the internet provides for instantaneous two-way communication. So everyone could be a news reporter, everyone could be a blogger, everyone could create videos. It's pretty cheap. In fact, you go back just a few years ago to produce a radio show or to produce audio. Give you an example. When we moved into Kenwood in our new studios here, this WLW studios here, which have 4 control rooms and 3 talk studios. The control room that I'm using right now and the talk studio that I'm in right now, which is our main studios, this suite here cost about $250,000, $275,000, maybe $300,000. The console that we use, the audio console, was about $75,000 or $80,000. What we use here today, you could have in your house for a couple $100. That's how far equipment costs have dropped. Radio and television are changing dramatically. People are there's a phrase that is used today that's all about people want the content when they want the content and in the amount they want the content. That's where podcasting comes in. We all watch videos on YouTube. We watch TV news now on the Channel 9 site, the Channel 5 site, the Channel 14-2 site. We watch video and TV shows when we want to watch them. For example, I have HBO. You know what I love? I love HBO Go. I watch HBO shows on HBO Go on my iPad all the time. That's the greatest app going. Netflix has that. Many of you have Netflix. Many people have, many of you have Hulu. this is where we're going in media today. The traditional media that is getting hurt the worst in all of this is newspapers. And this weekend, the Cincinnati Enquirer, I have to give them credit. Yesterday, they put in one of their final editions printed in Cincinnati. They did do an article, and I was wondering 18 months ago, and on this show I mentioned, I wonder if they're going to have a story in the Enquirer prior to them closing their printing plant in Queensgate. And to the credit of the Cincinnati Enquirer, they did it. However, they candy-coated it. Tonight, when the Cincinnati Enquirer's final edition, which will be tomorrow's Sunday paper, is printed at Queensgate, the Cincinnati Enquirer is going to lay off almost 30% of its workforce. They say 97 people, which is about 30% of their workforce. This is the same newspaper that has made us look bad here at Clear Channel, that has made numerous TV stations in town look bad every time there's a layoff. We have laid off dozens and dozens of people here at Clear Channel in Cincinnati. I fully admit to that. We have never laid off 30% of our workforce in one day. Monday, the Cincinnati Enquirer will have a new format. I believe the format will be the size, a little bit bigger than the size of a sheet of paper. And the Cincinnati Enquirer will now be printed by the Columbus Dispatch, the Wolf family of Wolf Brothers News and Shoes. The Cincinnati Enquirer de facto becomes the Columbus Dispatch, the Cincinnati edition, on Monday. Editorial content will still be done downtown in Cincinnati, but it will be printed 100 miles up the road. This past week we had some snow. Had a couple inches of snow. It was, as the Weather Channel coined it, Winter Storm Saturn hit the tri-state area. Here in Cincinnati, we had, about 2-3 inches of snow. Columbus had a little bit more north of there. Will the paper be delayed? Possibly. As Howard Beale said in Network, woe is us. You see, this is not a grave dancing conversation. Because I look at the value of a newspaper in any city, whether it's the Dispatch or the Plain Dealer in Cleveland or the Blade in Toledo or the Enquirer here in Cincinnati. I look at those newspapers as publications of record. Publications that are needed to keep the communication and keep the reporting going in our communities. But the fact is, the paywall websites like the Enquirer or they all colluded together to do paywalls at the same time. I don't know if you noticed that. If you frequent the Dispatch or you frequent the Plain Dealer or maybe your hometown newspaper, they all went to the paywall at the same time. That's the big C word, collusion. The truth is, not a lot of people are subscribing. Not a lot of people are having the paper delivered to their driveways every morning any longer. The truth is, many of these newspapers are down to about 16 pages and few ads every day. The truth is, the classified section no longer exists in newspapers. And those outside the media, few realize this. The moneymaker for every newspaper, traditionally, the classifieds. at $5 and $10 and $15 and $20 at a pop. That's where the money was. The money wasn't in full-page ads from Kroger or full-page ads from Macy's in the Sunday paper. The big money came in those classifieds. And when those classifieds went away, so went the business model of these newspapers. So tonight, the final button is going to be pressed at Queensgate. And 97 people, many of whom have worked there for 30 and 40 plus years, will no longer be loading those rolls of paper that weighed over a half-ton each, or hearing the noises of those presses, and no longer will be smelling that ink at the Cincinnati Enquirer printing plant. That is what is going on in media today in Porkopolis. We'll have a look at the spring weekend forecast. And I'm saying spring because tomorrow is going to be warm. We'll do that in 4 minutes on the big one, 700 WLW. Fox 19 Storm Tracker forecast from meteorologist Katie Morgan. For today, partly cloudy skies, warmer with a high of 55. Tonight, increasing clouds, not as cold, a low of 41. And for tomorrow, cloudy. Morning sprinkles, showers arrive again in the afternoon and evening with a high near 60. It is 35 and cloudy, 700 WLW. And by the way, the normal high for this time of the year, about 50. So we're going to be a little above normal this time of the year, and we're going to have some spring-type temperatures. Talking about the Enquirer ending their printing in Queensgate this actually tonight. The Sunday edition will be the last newspaper printed by the Cincinnati Enquirer here in the Cincinnati area. Coming up on Monday, that edition will begin the printing presses in Columbus, the Columbus Dispatch, picking up the newspaper printing for the Cincinnati Enquirer. I remember a number of years ago, it was a Saturday morning. In fact, it was a morning like this. And John Kieswetter, the TV and radio critic of the Cincinnati Enquirer, was in my office, and I was doing some show prep, and John sat in on my show. He did an article about me in the Enquirer, and I remember sitting there looking at him, and I said to him, John, when are you going to realize that we're in the same boat? And he looked at me bewildered. And I meant radio, television, and newspaper being in the same situation in traditional media. And he just looked at me like I was crazy. I thought, dude, the world's changing. It's all about your computer screen now. It's all about your smartphone. It's all about on-demand video and audio and newspaper articles and being able to read newspaper articles from the New York Times or the LA Times or the Houston Chronicle or you pick the newspaper. We don't live in this closed off media any longer. And that's what media traditionally has been over the years, really since its inception, whether it be newspapers or whether it be radio or television. There's always been a set number of, think about it, before cable on television. You had ABC, CBS, NBC, right? You had public television. Maybe you had an independent TV station in your... At tops, you had 5 TV stations. In radio, here in Cincinnati, the truth is there's there's like maybe 20, 30 radio stations. I don't know what the exact number is. But the truth is there's really 10 viable radio stations. 10 that get the majority of the listening on radio in this area. We're blessed here at the big one. We have this 50,000 watt signal that can be heard in 38 states and parts of Canada. This massive growling signal. And we know it's sacred. We know it's unique. There's only a handful of clear, I don't mean the company, there's only a handful of clear channel radio stations as defined by the federal government. And we're one of them. And it also helps that we're on the left side of the AM dial because it takes less power to push the signal if you're on the left side of the AM dial. So if you have 50,000 watts on the left side of the dial, good things will happen. Real good things will happen. Carphone Paul, what's going on? You're on the big one.
Good morning. How are you today?
I can't complain.
You know, I've been receiving propaganda from the Enquirer on almost a daily basis, trying to put a smart package on the downsizing non-newspaper they're now selling, telling me that, they're trying to tell me that there's something exciting about their new postage stamp newspaper, and I don't understand that. I'm trying to figure that one out.
I may be wrong, Paul. I may be wrong on this, but I believe the size is going to be 11 by 14.
That's hard to figure, Darryl, and they went to a new pay service. So I pull up the Enquirer, look at the article that I can't read because I didn't pay for it, put it in Google, and I read it on the internet.
Yeah. You know, many of those paywalls, here's the trick. They're going to be mad at me for saying this, but when it comes up before the paywall comes up, hit the button, the icon that says print, and another screen will come up, and you'll get past the paywall.
Oh, that's great, Darryl.
Many newspapers haven't figured that one out yet.
Hey, Darryl, I got to tell you a quick story. A friend, it goes along with the downsizing of the media. My friend brings his son over, and I'm showing him my ham radio equipment, and I'm all filled up on myself. I'm showing him my $30,000 worth of equipment. This one sends television. This one sends teletype. This one sends radio. The 9-year-old kid reaches into his pocket, pulls out his free cell phone, and looks at me and goes, "My cell phone does that."
Yeah. Yeah. Do you have a smartphone?
I do.
All right. I have an iPhone 4S. And it's fabulous. It is fabulous.
Well, my cell phone does everything that my computer does, everything that my ham radio equipment does, and it cost me $100 at the Sprint store.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Well, Paul, times are changing.
Yes, they are.
And you know
Darryl.
what we have to do? We have to embrace change.
Sell that to John Kieswetter.
Well, John Kieswetter doesn't realize his world is changing. Harphone Paul, have yourself a wonderful weekend. Times indeed they are a changing. At 9:34 this morning, the dean of sports talk in the tri-state, one Lance McAllister of 700 WLW Sports Talk, will be here to explain, and I will give full credit to Paul Doherty, P-Doc, for this one, because this is funny. Lance McAllister will explain not the Big East Conference, the Big Priest Conference. That's pretty good. I mean, that's some quality writing right there for Paul Doherty. Lance McAllister joins us after the news break. Tom has the news next here on the big one, 700 WL. Many people in the tri-state were confused this week about the Vag Vision that happened at UC, the 12 pictures of the JJ being on display there in that courtyard. I explain it on the blog at 700WLW.com. Just look up Darryl. It's a service of Alarm Force. It's all explained in one picture. The 12 pictures in one picture. Check it out, 700WLW.com. Go to my blog. Search the word Darryl. According to the Bible, the New Testament, Jesus Christ was betrayed by Judas. 30 pieces of silver. This is according to Matthew 26, 2.15. Before the Last Supper, Judas agreed to hand over Jesus Christ in exchange for those 30 pieces of silver. Afterwards, he was filled with remorse and returned the money. I have one question this morning. Will the Jesuits at Xavier feel remorse and hand back the 30 pieces of silver before my beloved UC Bearcats are crucified on the cross and nailed up? Lance McAllister, your reaction.
Darryl, good morning. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good.
You know, it is amazing to think back 8 years ago with the celebration that took place on Fountain Square and took place on the UC campus with Bob Going and Nancy Zimfer and Mike Tranghese, the commissioner of the Big East, came to town. They announced the addition of 4 schools. Mike came to this city for the announcement of UC rolling out the carpet. And 8 years later, had you made a bet on that day that Xavier and Butler would be in the Big East and that UC would be in a conference that may turn to Twitter to find a new conference name, what are the odds at that point of that happening? It's unbelievable.
Lance McAllister, I have been in meetings years ago with Bob Going, the then athletic director of the University of Cincinnati Bearcats. And I mean, vocally, many times he said, hey, look, our goal is to get into the Big East. His goal, one of the other goals, was to have a new arena built on the campus of UC to replace Fifth Third Arena. He had also numerous times said to me, he wanted to cancel the Crosstown Shootout, or whatever the hell they call it now, because he felt it was beneath the UC Bearcat basketball program to play Xavier. He said it to me. I could say that to him. I can say it now, since he's gone and retired and living in Florida, I guess. So now it has totally flip-flopped. The UC Bearcats are now on the outs, and Xavier is on the ins.
A stunning turn of events, Darryl.
Yep. So
and Darryl, realistically, what happened here is that schools like Xavier and schools that make up this new Big East, they simply got tired of having things dictated to them by schools that were driven by football. Obviously, Xavier and the Marquettes and the Georgetowns and the Villanovas don't have football, and they finally said, enough is enough. We'll go out and strike our own deal, and we'll manage our own vision and not be the stepchild to the football playing conferences.
Well, Lance, why is there such animosity in these schools? Between schools that have football programs and schools that don't. For the schools that you just mentioned, I mean, to me, it's the football program brings money to the table too.
Yeah, but so much of today, it's it's TVs and it's eyeballs to TVs and it's football which drives the bus. And if you don't have a football program, if you aren't that big a player, then you are dictated what's going to happen. And that group finally said, enough of being dictated to. We're going to do it on our own terms. And they got enough of a TV deal for eyeballs to their product, and in this call to divorce, the custody battle, they get the name Big East, they get the Madison Square Garden as the site to play their tournament, and they get enough money, they said, to hell with the rest of you, we're out of here, and let UC and the Memphises and the UConns and the Temples and the Houstons figure out a new name and a new place to play. We're going to do our own thing, and they're going to make out well enough money-wise that it's not going to make a difference to them.
All right, so it's Georgetown, St. John's, Providence, Seton Hall, Villanova, Marquette, and DePaul. They signed, you mentioned a TV deal, they did a deal with Fox. When is it going to be announced that Xavier is going to be one of the schools in this new Big East?
I would think it's simply a matter of your classic dotting I's, crossing T's, that ultimately it's going to be Xavier, it's going to be Butler, probably Creighton, and then you're looking at probably a year or two beyond that, maybe a St. Louis and a Dayton, and round it off somewhere. I've lost track of my numbers. I think that'd be around 12 teams. I think ultimately that's where they're going to wind up. But the next dominoes to fall will be Xavier, Butler, and probably Creighton when it's all said and done.
And that's going to happen in the coming weeks.
I would think so. I would think that'll be a big enough of those are coveted teams, although Butler not I think in the end, that's how the pieces will be put together, and I think that'll be a nice little tidy product they're going to be able to present.
Lance McAllister is 700 WLW Sports Talk. So what does this mean for the UC Bearcats? The University of Cincinnati, will they be playing Herbert Hoover Junior High in the coming season?
Darryl, for the time being, it's kind of like a holding pattern. And in a perfect world, there's no secret. The ACC is the end game. I think UC would hope to sit for 1 year while this plays out in this America 12 is the front runner for the new conference, and then get that invite in the mail. ACC, come on in. If that doesn't happen, there's going to be some trouble. But ultimately, conference realignment is going to look like 5 super conferences with 16 teams each, and that, according to my Butler math, is 80 teams. I refuse to believe in an 80-team superpower setup UC is not going to be invited into that. It's not going to be right away. It's going to be a year of playing in this conference, and they're going to have to bide their time, and they're going to have to get their fans to believe in and take a leap of faith here from a support standpoint. But in 2 years, if they're not in the ACC, then you've got a much bigger story, and you've got much bigger trouble for the University of Cincinnati.
So UC, what do they have to do to get into the ACC?
Three things. It's a three things that UC was told by the ACC already. They lacked in support, they lacked in facilities, they lacked in budgets. And the problem is, Darryl, what is going to be presented for UC Athletics in the next year is going to be a downsized version of the Big East. I said last night, it's like asking your fans, they ate steak for 8 years in the Big East. Now they're going to be back to burgers in this conference. You need your fans not only to maintain, but they need more money. They need bigger attendance. They need more donations. They need to move up in class. And the ACC looked at them before and said, look, you got a football stadium that can't sell out 34,000. You got a glorified basketball gym that's a high school basketball gym, and you don't have the budgets to compete with everybody else. Now, in this landscape that's changing, the ACC is not going to get everything they need here, and they're going to need bodies. And whether UC matches all the criteria or not, ultimately they're going to join it. The problem for UC is once they join, you got to be able to compete, and that means private jets for Mick Cronin to jump in and go recruit in that other schools have that UC doesn't have. That means a better gym, a better basketball arena. That means a better football stadium, and that means a lot of money is going to be needed that's not there right now.
Well, look at the facilities here in the Cincinnati area. Of course, you have. I agree with you. Fifth Third Arena. The first time I went into that, I was like, really? and this was, and believe me, that was 20 years ago. This is a gym, yeah. And look, a Nippert Stadium's charming. It's charming, but it's if there's a big crowd, it's horrible. There's not enough bathrooms. There's not enough beer stands. There's not enough parking. It's just a drag where it's located. But here in the tri-state area, we have Paul Brown Stadium. We have the arena down on the river. I mean, why wouldn't those facilities play into getting UC into the ACC?
Darryl, I've said all along, UC should play their games at Paul Brown Stadium. Be done with it. To go there for UC Louisville 2 years ago, and the ease of getting to the restroom and back, and getting to the concession stand and back without, you can do it during a timeout. Compared to Nippert, it's night and day.
Right.
Whit Babcock continues to insist that when they do that, because of the terms of the deal between the Bengals and the county and what they offer the Bengals, it's a lose proposition. So I'll take him at his word that it's a lose proposition, but it makes it very difficult. They're talking, 60 to 70 million to upgrade Nippert Stadium. You're asking that, and I said last night, you're asking UC fans to invest in what is right now, and they're having troubles. Good luck asking them to invest in what might be 2 years from now in a vision that requires a leap of faith. That's a gigantic leap of faith.
Well, I've been told that Paul Brown Stadium to open it cost, and this was maybe 5, 6, 7 years ago, from someone that no reason to lie to me and knows, they said it cost just to open the doors at Paul Brown Stadium $100,000.
Ouch.
Yeah. So, I mean, you can see where it doesn't make it's not financially feasible for UC to play many games at Paul Brown Stadium. Well, look, it is amazing, as you said, Lance McAllister, in 8 years where this program, the big celebration of getting into the Big East from Conference USA, and 8 years later, it's like they're playing junior high school teams. It's unreal.
Darryl, back to your original point, which I abandoned too quickly on the shootout. Mark this down. That crosstown shootout game is going to be played at US Bank Arena on a neutral site, or it's not going to be played at all. If you give me a stack of money to bet, if Xavier doesn't agree to those terms, that game goes away.
Bob Going said to me, he said, the only way moving forward that we will play long-term Xavier University. And Lance, this was a few years before Bob Huggins got the gate. He said, played at a neutral site.
Yep.
That way I don't have to pay to open up Fifth Third Arena. I get a check and walk away.
UC is not playing that game at Cintas Center again. That game will go away, or they'll play neutral site. People may not want to believe that.
Well, it's not going to be UC's decision. It's going to be Xavier's.
Yeah.
It's going to be totally Xavier's decision now. It is amazing. All right, so this all starts on July 1st.
Correct. And that's the point that the conference to be announced will have to officially. They've registered domain names. It looks like America 12. I like old school Metro. That's what UC was in from, I think, 75 to 90. But
what?
Yeah,
old school. I've never heard that.
No, I'm saying old school nostalgia. The Metro Conference, which is what
Metro.
UC was
Okay,
in,
I got you.
in 1975 to 90. But it looks like the front runner is America 12, which is ironic because it's not going to be it'll be 12 as long as UC and UConn are in it. But their hope would be before the ink is dry, they're out, and your numbers already reduced to 10, and you're chasing new schools.
Lance, fans of the Big Ten can't count either. All right, Lance, have a great weekend.
Thanks, Darryl. You too.
Lance McAllister, 700 WLW Sports Talk. 15 in front of 10. I'm Darryl Parks on the big one, 700 WLW. And sports today. Well, last night first. Game that was heard here on the big one. Reds and Cubs rained out after an inning and a half. Each team had a run. The other game with the split squad, it was the Dodgers over the Reds 3-1 when that was rained out after 4.5 innings. Today, it's the Brewers and the Reds, 4:05 for the first pitch, and you can hear that game here on the big one, 700 WLW. Also in college basketball today, it is UC taking on South Florida. 4 o'clock tip-off here, the game on WEBN. Xavier takes on Butler. Taking on Lance McAllister's alma mater in Indianapolis, and that game at 6:30 tonight. Hear that game on 55 KRC, the talk station. All right, about 11 minutes in front of 10 o'clock on the big one. I'm Darryl Parks. Bob writes to D. Parks at 700WLW.com. He said, hey, Darryl, speaking of the Enquirer, did you see the picture on A4 of the Enquirer this morning? Yeah, you got to look at this picture if you get a chance. It's about the election of the Pope, the conclave starting next week. 2 cardinals holding hands. Bad form, Cardinals. Bad form. Mike in Columbus, you're on the big one.
Good morning, Darryl.
Hey, Mike.
Hey, I'd like to put Paul a little bit at ease here because up here in Columbus, we've been receiving the dispatch it's been about a month now since the format changed. And it is larger than a postage stamp. It is smaller. It's kind of like your community newspaper. I assume you have those down there. And actually, I was very skeptical when they first announced it, but I've grown to kind of like the new format.
Mm-hmm.
It's more condensed. And wait, I don't work for the Dispatch Printing Company, so let me make that clear.
You don't work for the Wolves?
I do not work for the Wolves.
Got it.
I don't work for 10 TV or I'm none of those.
Got it.
So anyway, but I will tell you, I was skeptical, and I'm more than to like the new layout.
Well, but Mike, the issue is not the format. We'll all grow to become accustomed to that. The issue is being printed by the Columbus Dispatch.
Well, I understand that part, but I mean, Paul was like talking about it's going to be this little tiny little paper, and it's not really. You don't lose any content. In fact,
how's the printing? How big's the font?
I think it's the same as it was
in
the old format.
Okay.
So I don't think they even changed the font, but they have a system where they can continue stories. I mean, I'm not sure how the Enquirer is printed, but the Dispatch stories used to hop from here to here to here, and it kind of gives them a way to continuously flow with the story. If you flip the page, you might have to go, a little flipping to catch back up with the story, but it's not the end of the world as far as the newspaper goes.
Well, Mike, I'm not so worried about the content. But when 97 people, or a third of the workforce, almost a third of the workforce at the Cincinnati Enquirer gets laid off, when that happens in media, it's a bad thing for any community. 8 in front of 10 on the big one, 700. Oh, by the way, I want to tell you to be listening at 10:45 this morning because I have one of the models that posed for the Vag Vision at UC this past week. We just lined it up. 10:45 here on the big one. 700 WLW. I'm Darryl Parks. Vag Vision. Explained. I'll explain it at 10:06, and also if you head to the website, 700WLW.com, I have it explained in one picture. And as Willie said, you can go down there and you can have your picture taken in one, looking through one of the pictures. It's almost like you're being born again. Pretty exciting. Blake or Bob, you're on 700 WLW.
Daryl, how are you?
Okay.
Hey, that whole Enquirer thing, trying to, if you're not a paid subscriber to the online access and that kind of thing, they give you like 20 articles or something like that.
No, it's 10.
I've been over 10. I've seen it. There's a counter on the side that says you have X number of articles left.
Yeah, not everything is counted. That's why. But there's 10 articles. Well,
and anytime I open up that little tab, it's not anytime, but sometimes it's been over 10. And it's like, dude, I'm never going to use all these articles by the time it finally resets itself. And I switch between the computer I use at home and the computer I use at work.
Well, that way you get 20 articles.
Well, I never run out.
You can get, if you're economical. For instance, I have a desktop computer at home. I have an iPhone. I have an iPad. I have a laptop, and I also have a computer on my desk here at work. So between those, just multiply it out.
Yeah,
that's a way around it. Yeah, that's a way around it.
Now, if I was paying for it, I kind of be like, hey, how come so-and-so's getting the freebie out of it?
Well, you know what we're doing here, Biker Bob? It's like stealing cable. We're admitting on 50,000 watts this morning that we're getting around the paywall at the Cincinnati Enquirer. 10:06, I explain Vag Vision at UC. This is the home of the Cincinnati Reds. 700 WL.